As a fan of resistance band training in general and just resistance bands, the 41-inch loop bands, I always like to have bands around because even though I do a lot more variety than just resistance band training, I still do some full workouts of just resistance bands, but I usually incorporating some of my favorite exercises instead of using my adjustable dumbbells or using a sandbag or something. Some of my favorite exercises, which I'll go over in a future series of videos, like I've done my favorite exercises using particular kinds of equipment, but then I'm going to show what my favorites are overall. And some of my favorite exercises overall are with resistance bands. So to me, I'd rather use resistance bands for certain exercises than a kettlebell or a dumbbell or, whatever, sandbag or anything like that. But I've tried a lot of different brands of resistance bands at this point because I've kind of been going at this, with resistance bands for almost 4 years now. And, I continue to find their usefulness in my training, whether I'm using them for assistance or, in calisthenics, or I'm using them to add resistance to, increase tension without adding weight to a dumbbell or something like that. Or if I'm using it just for a particular resistance band exercise. I just constantly find new uses for them. They're just fantastic piece of kit. Everyone should have a set of resistance bands. And so I've reviewed the Kensui's fabric bands in the past, and you can go watch that video and see what I think about that versus regular rubber resistance bands. But they did come out with a set of latex bands. And, I've said before, after using so many different types of resistance bands, that yes, they do vary in quality, but at the end of the day, resistance bands are resistance bands. And of course, when I got these, these are not the dip layered bands. These are molded bands. So they're not along the lines of like a Clinch or a Serious Steel or the RBT training guy. Those types of bands, they're just molded bands. But one thing I did notice is resistance bands are ultimately resistance bands, sure, and that goes for, the quality of the dip layered bands are better than the molded bands and better than the regular layered bands and things like that. There's different processes, even though a lot of bands follow the same color scheme. What I found with these bands, though, that surprised me is the resistance is a lot tougher on these Kensui bands than, say, the Garage Fit bands that I used, or even the dip layered clinch bands or the Undersun bands. Now, that's a blessing and a curse, that they're just a little bit tougher. I don't know why that is, because, the given ranges are just as you would find in any bands that look a lot like this that you could find on Amazon. But, I found that it's not just, these are new bands, because I've tried new bands all the time, so I know that bands that are new are going to have a lot, tougher resistance than bands that you've worked with for a year or two. But because I've tried so many just out of the package at this point, I noticed that these are surprisingly got a lot of tension. They're surprisingly tougher out of the bag than other band companies. So that's the thing that I noticed first about them, which also I think bodes well for the quality of the material. But I did notice on a couple of exercises testing them out that, it just felt tougher than using that band new out of the bag by other companies or, bands that you've been using for a while. So that's just interesting. So just passing that along to you, that if you need a set of bands that are, not terribly expensive, like some of the dip layered bands or whatever, if you're just looking for a good solid set of molded bands that are high quality, I have to say, whoever they found to manufacture these, I hope they stick with the same manufacturer, because I don't know what other brands this might be a white label for. I have no idea where he sourced these from, but well done. They are really a solid set of resistance bands out of the bag, and And it's actually good because if you've been using the same resistance bands for a long time, the same set, you get a new set and you find that, you know, using that band you used last week that was old instantly gets tougher without having to band up. But with these, you get like that times 4, I'd say. I mean, it was surprising to me how good the tension was on these bands. They just didn't have a whole as much give as other bands did, which, like I said, may be a bad thing depending on, you know, your strength level or whatever. But for bands, these are high quality. I'm impressed. I don't know where he got them from, who manufactured these, but this is not just another set of bands. It's you know, it's probably the best quality molded bands I've seen on the market, to be honest with you. Probably better than the Undersun molded bands. Now, they're probably not still as good as the dip layered bands in terms of quality and construction and all that, but they've got greater tension in them than even the dip layered bands that I've used from clinch and RBT training. So, I mean, you know, bands are just bands. You're going to do the same exercises with them or, you know, whatever. But if you need a set of bands, these are about as good as you can get for the price. And better than some of the molded bands that are a little bit higher in price than these. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the Kensui's resistance bands. I'm glad I picked these up. They've become my primary set now. I still keep my Undersun for backup. And I only have one set of these. I may pick up some more, but I don't know. I don't use them as often as I used to, and I still have bands everywhere. So I picked these up because I wanted to review them and see what they had to say about this and kind of compare them to the fabric bands. But if I ever need to replace another set, I'm probably going to look here first. Now, you only get a set of 4 instead of 5, and I do like, you know, the little bitty band that you get from the extra light band that you get from Undersun and some of the other companies. Undersun's bands are all orange, but, you know, it's that extra light band that's the yellow band in some of the sets. This doesn't have that 5th band, but I like it. I just don't use it anymore very much, but there you go. Anyway, those are my thoughts on the Kensui Resistance Bands. Check them out on their website. Link in the description below. If you liked the video, click the like button. If you didn't like the video, click the dislike button. Don't really care either way. If you want to support Theology Geek Fitness, you can do that by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Theology Geek Fitness. And all that money gets reinvested into the channel so that I can buy more things to review and see if they're awesome. And $1 will get you into the door to hundreds of workout videos featuring resistance bands and all the other equipment that I like to use featured on the channel. And $10 and above patrons get in on the free gear giveaways. So sometimes I offer a full set of resistance bands to give away that I've tried. So sometimes I offer suspension trainers that I'm not going to use. Whatever. I give away things that I'm not going to use on a regular basis, whether I liked them in the review or not. It's the patrons who make this possible, so I like to give back to them. So consider that $10 and above, and we do that. I don't know. Probably going to try to do that 4 times a year. So there you go. Appreciate that. Just like I appreciate you watching the video. We'll see you in the next one. God bless.